Hey everyone, this is Rick Gualtieri, and this is another Tales of a Midlist Author. I apologize if I haven't posted in a while. Um, sometimes you need to step away from the social media and also from the various other activities, and do what a writer is supposed to do, which is write. Um, in addition to that, obviously, you want to market, you want to edit, you just want to do all those other things. But needless to say, I've been pretty busy, and that's actually a pretty good thing. Um, just to let you know, before the end of the year, quick little plug to myself. I do have two new titles coming out. Night Stalker, which is part of an anthology, and The Wicked Dead, which is the Tome of Bill, Book 7. So all that hard work's been paying off. In addition, I've been stepping up my marketing efforts. I know in the early parts of the series, I mentioned how I had sold almost 100,000 books. Well, now we can turn that to over 100,000 books. And, once again, that's just through a combination of hard work, effort, and trying to learn and become a little less stupid in this business every day. So good stuff all in all. And I hope likewise your writing career has also taken a turn for the up. Um, so anyway, what I wanted to talk about in this issue was the concept of front matter and back matter. And primarily this is for ebooks and print books. There's a little bit of that in audiobooks too, but typically that's more of an introduction, copyright, and then at the end acknowledgments. But front matter and back matter are basically that stuff that sandwiches your story. The stuff you put in the front of your book, the stuff you put at the end of your book, when people are done with the story, that leads them into the story, takes them out of the story. And I wanted to discuss some ideas there, and also why print and ebook should probably be a little bit different. So let's talk about some common things that go typically at the front of a book. Now, there's no hard and fast rule for this. A lot of people switch it up. Some people like get straight to the story, put everything in the back. Others like really front load their books. I like to have kind of a mix. A little bit at the front, a little bit at the back. And put what makes the most sense where. So let's talk about some of the stuff that can go into this. So your front matter. Probably the first thing in your ebook, aside after your cover, is a title page. This is where you're going to list the name of the book, if it's a part of the series, and of course, you, the author. After that, I like to have my copyright page. This is where you have your legalese, copyright 2015, Rick Gualtieri, or whatever company you're at. Your little legal disclaimer that says, hey, everything in this book is copyrighted to me, unless I use other characters, in which case they're copyrighted to those other people. There's some pretty common blurbs you can find out there. If you have an ISBN, that's probably where it would go as well. If you have a link to a web page or to your author or to your publisher, that's also where it would go there. Then you have then a lot of people would put a dedication. Who is this book for? For my loving wife, for my wonderful children. For the hobo who who didn't spit on me as I walked past them last week. Whatever. Acknowledgements, and this can be either huge or small, really. It's usually your thank yous. Some people essentially list out everybody in their lives. Hey, thank you to my wife, my kids, my family, my grandmother. Grandpappy Johnson back in the 1800s. My editor, my my so and so, all that stuff. Or you can just say, here's a quick list of people I thank. As part of those acknowledgments, or I usually like to put it on my copyright page. You also typically want to list anybody who's helped you with the book. So Megan, my editor, Mallory, my cover designer, typically Beth, my proofreader. One, I like to acknowledge them, and two, give a link to their websites, because they've done well by me, so I want to make sure that they do that. I do them a solid as well. So anyway, after that, what a lot of people will also have is praise. And this is usually kind of almost your editorial blurbs, like, hey, this book is the best thing since sliced bread, by Stephen King, or whatever other authors you're getting to blurb your book. That typically goes into the front. And then comes kind of more your stuff. Link to your web page, a link to your email sign up, your contact info, and so on. That's typically considered front matter stuff. You might also do an introduction to your book there. I used to do introductions, but I've since moved to author's notes at the end, and I'll kind of tell you why. The main difference where you want to possibly do ebook and print differently for your front matter is that big thing that Amazon and those other ebook stores do, which is essentially the look inside, where you essentially get the first 10% of the book. And the reason you want to think that through is, say you have a 100-page book. That means they're going to see 10 pages of that. Do you want to show them 9 pages of acknowledgments and then 1 page of story, or do you really want that story to sell? And that's typically why I would say, for a print book, put all that praise you want, pages and pages of it at the front. That's not a bad thing. An ebook, though, I would probably move that to the back, or Amazon and also some of the other players, they allow you to put editorial reviews on your book page. Put them there. Put them up front so people can look at them if they're interested. That's really the place for them. I try to keep that stuff to a minimum. Maybe there's 3, maybe 4, at most 5 pages before you get into the story. Since my stories tend to be pretty long, that means you have a good chunk of story where you can see, a couple chapters where you can see if you like it or not. And if it's a shorter story, I'm going to leave that out a little bit. I'll leave that out, or take away some of that stuff and move it to the back, because I want people to read the story, get hooked by it, and want to see more, because that's pretty much what's going to sell it. The rest of the world telling, say how great you are. That's cool and all. Honestly, I'm not really sure that sells a book as much as, an awesome opening, hooking the reader right away and making them want to see what happens next. Oh, one other thing I left out. In certain cases, and this is kind of optional, what you might want to put in your front matter is your blurb. And the reason for this is that some people will buy your book and read it right away. Some people will buy your book, they have 1.5 million other books to read to, and by the time they get to yours, they've probably forgotten what it is. So that little blurb will kind of remind them, why they bought your book, why they're interested in reading it, and hopefully entice them to move forward. Just a little trick. It only takes up really a half a page, but I think it's useful in this day and age. Although I probably wouldn't put it necessarily in the print version, because in that case, you have the cover, you have the back, all of that. So speaking of back matter, this is also where you would put, if you're running a series, or if you just have a next book coming out, your coming soon page. Hey, in my case, I usually do kind of a little James Bond style. Similar to how they say the Avengers will return in Age of Ultron, I'll say, Bill Ryder will return in, The Wicked Dead Book 7, and just let people know that there's more coming. Conversely, or added to that, usually I like to put a bonus chapter. Some people go nuts on this, in which case, this is also an area where you want to, be careful. If I download your book and I get to the 80% mark on my Kindle and it's over, well, the rest of that 20% tells me it's filler material or such. Now, if you told me up front that, hey, in this collection of stories, I'm also putting some stuff at the back, hey, that's cool. If it's full stuff. But if it's really just 20% of the book is just preview of the next book that's going to leave me hanging, that might annoy me a little bit more. Now, you want to get people past that 90% mark, before you start giving them the rest of the stuff. That being said, a short bonus chapter I think is good to wet people's whistle for what's coming next, especially if that next book is already out now. That can definitely help. But if not, it lets people know that you are working on something. I mentioned I usually put my author notes. That's usually just a couple paragraphs just saying, hey, here's what happened during the writing of the story. Here's how I enjoyed writing it, all that stuff. Nothing in depth. I will have an author page there that will list out, my little mini bio, which just says some stupid shit, really. Hopefully to garner a laugh. And then it lists out my other books. What else is available for me. This is an area where in print, you do want to list this out. In ebook format, you probably want to link those books. So when I put a title, there's usually a link associated with it. Now, there's kind of 2 thoughts involved with this, with linking. I come from the web world, and that says, make it as easy as possible, give people as few links to click. So in that case, traditionally what I've done is if you buy a book from me from Amazon, those links at the back all take you to that book page on Amazon. If you're buying it from Kobo, those links take you to the Kobo pages. The other idea behind that is to take you to, instead, the author's website where all those links are right there. So there's kind of 2 sides to that. In the way I'm talking about, the way I do it, there's less links to click for the user. It takes them right to the book page so they can right there say, hey, purchase the next one in series, move on. Convenient for the user. I will say this, pain in the ass to maintain. I have over 10 books out there now. So each book that I release, I have to go back and update for every one of those stores, assuming I'm going wide. Um, in which case, you could essentially, to add one line to a book, that could be like essentially 50 files I'm updating or more, and that essentially kills a full afternoon. The flip side of doing it is send it to my website, which I am considering maybe switching to just for like ease of use. But once again, it's that thing of like, okay, now you're on my website. There's a whole bunch of links to the Amazon, to the Kindle, or to the Kobo page, to the Barnes and Noble, all of that. But it also adds an extra click for the user, which may or may not affect their ability to actually buy it. Which by that time they click, essentially it gives you one extra point of failure that could affect things. That's really just the thought behind those two. So give it some thought. I will also say that some programs out there and some programs do make back matter a little bit easier. I believe Vellum and Scrivener, those have functionalities in there to make it easy to add a new book and just spit out multiple copies and such. I got an email last week. It sounds like Draft to Digital, one of the ebook aggregators out there, is also adding some tools to make back matter a little bit easier, which I think is pretty cool. But it's just something to take into account. One is more convenient for the customer, which I'm a big fan of, and the other though is more convenient to you, the writer. And the only reason you might want to go down that path is that it's hard to track. You really can't use affiliate links in your book, so it's hard to track how much of a click-through rate there really is. So it's one of those, you might be putting a lot of work for very little return, versus hey, let me put something easy in there, that's easy for me to maintain, that really gets the same results. So just something to keep an eye on. I might keep an eye on my sales after changing it, just to see if there's even a little blip in the radar or not. So those are really the ideas behind front and back matter. One other thing I will add is the concept of an email sign up or ways for people to contact you. I would say in the front of your book and in the back of your book is probably not a bad idea to have a link to your website. If you have an email sign up form, which you do have, don't you? That's a really good marketing tool. You should get people to it. The question there is, how do you want to do it? A text link is easy, but if you're really trying to grow, especially if you have some ways to incentivize people, like say, hey, sign up for my mailing list, I'll give you some free books or so. You might want to consider putting some graphics in there, making it stand out, nice and big. Essentially give people an advertisement specifically at the front of your book. It does add to your front matter, which once again, if you have a short book, you're taking away story, but it is something that's eye-catching and something to consider. Either way you look at it, you want to be smart about front and back matter. You want to put as much info as you can there, but at the same time, you want to take into account how people are viewing it. Are you going to take away from the story the thing that really is selling? Just to put some praise about how you're the best book ever from from some author who hopefully read it but maybe didn't. Things to keep in mind, and also keep in mind, it's very easy to go the lazy route and just say ebook and print are the same, but they're not. So you probably want to take that into consideration. As with everything, think it through very carefully. Think about it from your perspective, what's going to make the most sense, but also from the customer's perspective. And ultimately, if you have to choose one, I would probably say the customer's preference trumps mine. So I would usually always lean in that. But once again, you want to treat it like a business, which means doing it so you kind of get that most return, that most bang for your buck. As with really everything in this business, treat it like a professional. Anyway. That is about what I have to say on that. Once again, my name is Rick Gualtieri. This is Tales of a Midlist Author, and hopefully my next installment won't be so far away as from the last one. But you can never tell. This is a crazy business, and this is a busy time of year. Never a bad thing, really, though. All right. Hope to talk to you soon.